ZNS Total Sports is brought to you by 4th Terrace Diagnostic Center.
Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Kelsey Johnson. Welcome to Sports Monday. One game in the bag, and that went to the defending champions in the women's division of the New Providence Softball Association. The Johnson Lady Truckers came with lit bats, firing at will and blazing to an early 11-1 lead over the veteran Sunshine Auto Wildcats. The Truckers could have forced the mercy rule, but failed to score late in the bottom of the fourth. The Wildcats racked in a couple more runs, putting pressure on the Lady Truckers, who managed to score 2 more runs. That wasn't enough to call the game, so the Wildcats came back once again in that frame, batting in more.
A few of them had their heads down. I had to be a leader and encourage them and tell them that, it's not over. So we just started to take our time and just, started to get on base a little more. And we started to make a little more contact offensively. So that was the encouragement that I gave them.
They need to recognize it when we are by all those runs, and we have to get the runs so that we could stop the game when we need to. It comes with experience, and you have to have that guts and hearts, and we played with that tonight, but we fell down, but tomorrow will be a different game.
Squash, no, not the vegetable, but the game which was invented in the early 1800s. Yes, it is still being played right here in the Bahamas.
Squash has been around for a long time in the Bahamas. It's been here for about 40 years. I think people just don't really realise what it is and where you can play. You can play here and you can play at Village Road. You used to be able to play at Cable Beach, but no more, unfortunately. Now there's Bahama there, you can still play here and at Village Road, and there's juniors that play as well as adults, and all ages and sexes play it. So, we're happy to have anybody coming along, from beginners and experienced players.
With a limited number of players competing in the sport, the clubs have found creative ways to keep hitting the wall.
We have lots of tournaments going on. Well, not lots, but I organise about 4 tournaments a year. We are going to do East-West Challenge soon, which is going to be Island House against Village Road in a couple of weeks' time. So that should be fun. Hopefully we'll have about 12 players from each side. And then people are more than welcome to come along and watch and see what it's about then. And keep your eye out. We're always having tournaments going on here. Hopefully we'll get international tournaments as well, where we get to see some professionals come from overseas. And keep your eye out. There might be some junior stuff going on and some, clinics and that kind of thing.
The ZNS sports team still awaits an official report from the executives of the Bahamas Government Departmental Basketball Association. The executives promised to release a statement on Sunday after a contentious game on Saturday night. Even though they didn't, we got what happened firsthand from head coach Anthony Copperole, who is also a member of the executive team.
Listen to what happened. The referee didn't call the game, The referee decided to walk out. The game was not called. He didn't call and say, over. He walked out of the game. The next official should have carried on the game, or backup officials should have been in place to continue, so the game was not called. So if they won't say they win, I have to reward them, and I ain't reward them.
You either listen to what I ask you to do, or you sit on the bench. And those guys who were causing ruckus on our side, I benched them. The reality is, at the end of the day, we have a game to play. We want to play basketball. We don't want to be involved in all of the technical fouls and all of the shenanigans. And as a result of that, I played those guys who wanted to play.
The only time you should ever look back is to see how far you've come. As we take a glimpse into the history books for sports, we introduce to you the country's first professional basketball player.
Bells was traded to the San Antonio Spurs for forward Steve Johnson. Bells remained in San Antonio as a backup center to an aging Otis Gilmore. But 2 days before the NBA trade deadline, good luck came for Bells on a bad luck day. February the 13th, Bells was traded to the Los Angeles Lakers for center Peter Goodmanson, Frank Brokowski, a draft choice in 1990, and $350,000 in cash. A deal Larry Bird of the Celtics called a giveaway. Bells paid dividends in his very first game. That Sunday, with no practice time with the team at all, Bells responded. Great defense to shut down Kevin McHale, and the Lakers defeated the Boston Celtics. From there on in, things got better. Game 6 capped things off for Bells. Bells with a 16.9 rebound performance and great defense once again on Kevin McHale played a pivotal role in leading the Los Angeles Lakers to their championship victory and its first ever world title.
That was the voice of legendary sportscaster, the late Phil Smith, the voice of sports broadcasting in the Bahamas. The 1975 St. Augustine's College graduate got his start here at ZNS under the guidance of veteran newsman Kirk Smith. It was Phil Smith whose calm presence on the set of the ZNS Evening's news set the standard for sports broadcasting in the Bahamas.
I think that we have achieved a number of things over the last 40 years. I mean, if you take us as a country and you look at what we have achieved as a country, you would have to take sports and probably put sports to the forefront, basically because other than independence, which I see as the single greatest achievement for the Bahamas since 1973, sports is really the front runner. Because when you look at it, in 73, at that time, we had our one and only pro football player, that was Ed Smith, who played for the Denver Broncos at that particular time. After that, we go to 75, where Elisha Obed was the only world champion in boxing and still is at this particular time. You move from 75, you go to 78, and 78 was when Michael Thompson was the #1 pick in the NBA with the Portland Trail Blazers. And as you move down and you sort of go into the 80s, that is where we had all those professional baseball players. We had a whole line of them, and either in the Dodger system where Henry Williams was, you had Jason Moxey and Eddie Ford and Johnny Embrissa, Jackie Wright in the Boston Red Sox system, and Vince Albright. That's where you had all those in there with baseball. And then you had Ray Manis fighting for the World Championship in boxing in 1987 in Miami at the Miami Beach Convention Center. He fought after that 2 times for the world title. Even though he didn't win, he was there. And then he was the Commonwealth title during the 80s as well. And then you move into the 90s, and that's when we started to add more NBA players. We added Ian Lockhart. He came 13 years after Mike. And then right after him, we added Dexter Cambridge, and then Rick came right after that. So we started to add more NBA players. And then we went into track and field, even though track and field was already outstanding after independence from 76 when we started to win the Carifta Games, and then we started to produce people like Steve Hanna and Shawnell and Bradley and Fabian Williams and the Stephen Rays. But then in 92, we got the first track medal when Frank won the bronze medal in triple jump in 92. Then right after that, we progressed even more because the girls came up silver in the relays in 96. And you can see between 95 and there where you had people like Troy Kemp, who won the gold medal in the World Championships. That was in 95. And then you had Sabatino winning a medal in the World Championships as well. And then you had Frank in the World Cup with the bronze medal. And then you had all those NCAA champions, led by Frank and Phil Rubens a bit earlier, and Steve Hanna. And then after that, you had the double champions where Debbie Ferguson came up double, and you had Sabatino Fines coming up double. So you can see that in all sports that we progressed rather rapidly and rather well.
That was the late sportscaster, Phil Smith. Well, that's all the time we have for sports. I'm Kelsey Johnson.